Buddy, this is Perch, and talking about legacy superheroes in comic books, which has been a topic of much conversation here. And Newsarama has, I'm sorry, I'm not going to call it Games Radar. It's still going to be Newsarama. So I won't change. I won't accept the new legacy anyway. What is the drama here? The idea is that legacy characters, basically characters that are kind of new, younger, often more diverse versions of the classic characters, are making their way in, and are they better, are they worse, etc. And so Newsround puts this list together of the top 10 legacy characters, and I found it interesting. So I want to look at this list, but also talk just about legacy in general. I want to say something that I think a lot of people in the comments may disagree with, kind of right out the gate. I think building a legacy of characters is not a bad plan if you more or less have a plan. For example, I don't think it makes sense to water down a brand. Like, do you need 18 Flashes running around? That probably gets confusing to people, but I do think there's a good storytelling mechanism in place of like handing down the mantle. And I think that, the Tony Stark Rhodey example is a good one. The Hal Jordan, John Stewart is a good one. I think that whole progression of including even Guy Gardner and to some extent Kyle, I think that's not bad. I think that the problem is then you multiply that by another 50 and you get like the Green Lantern Corps. But I do think this idea of kind of handing down the legacy has been a decent one. I even think, and again, I'm guessing a lot of people have not actually read these stories. If you go back to the Carol Captain Marvel stories back in the beginning of the 80s, right? Or was it the end of the 70s? That was not bad. That was that progression was pretty good. Those stories actually worked hard to have the character kind of earn what she did, and she made mistakes and she came back, and there was certainly some weird stuff that went on in that book, but it was more of a legacy. Today, there's some Marvel comics out right now. There's two of them, in fact, that people are promoting. One where a Cable meets Rocket Raccoon for the first time. Now, what they forget is Cable did meet Rocket Raccoon back when Bendis was writing the books. And so but Cable is like fangirling over Rocket Raccoon of being one of the most amazing generals in the world. And then in a kind of a different book, Bishop meets Wave and basically is like, wow, you're a hero in my generation. I look up to you. You're my idol. That kind of legacy progression doesn't work. It's cheating. It's taking a very easy route. And I think that's where a lot of comics have gotten to now, is they basically take this. They avoid the stories of progression. They avoid the character kind of earning their stripes. I mean, but look at it a different way. Miles Morales failed a lot in the beginning of his story. It was endearing. It helped grow the character as a legacy character, and that was a good thing. If they would have had just Miles Morales show up, instantly be able to defeat any kind of villain, and then they have Peter just standing around the whole time going, wow, you're way much better than me. I'm impressed. I don't even know why I put on tights anymore. You're better. That stuff tends to annoy people. And increasingly, that's kind of the storytelling that Marvel at least uses. To some extent, DC as well with some of these new characters. They go out of their way to make sure we understand that this new version is superior to the old version in every possible way. And in doing so, they take away the conflicts and the challenges and the problems that the new characters have that would build up the fan support. And then they wonder, like, why is everybody rejecting these new characters? And it must be because they're women or they're not white. And it's like, no, it's because you took away all the complexity. You took away the difficulty. And through difficulty becomes the moments you remember. But anyway, let's take a look. So this is a very interesting list, though. The best legacy superheroes in comic books. And if I go through it, we talk about various things. Let's go through his top 10 list. Here we get an ad for, I don't know, this guy. Why he needs to put one button up. I understand he's trying to look like the main character, but this isn't a good look, buddy. You look, anyway. All right, fine. Number 10, Sam Wilson, Captain America. Okay. I don't think this is a bad pick. I think Sam Wilson was handled all right. I think that it was undermined by the way it progressed. I think they actually did some work to put Sam Wilson into the Shield. I think they rushed it along a little bit because Rick Remender was wrapping up his run. And I do think Bucky is also was an interesting choice. I think Brubaker in a weird way did more to build up Bucky with the Shield than they did Sam, even though Sam was probably the more logical choice in a lot of ways due to the history of the character. But at any rate, yeah, okay, Sam Wilson is. If I was grading it, I'd say it was like a kind of a B for start and a D for, close to an F for execution, because they undermined, Nick Spencer just completely undermined the character as soon as he got into the costume, unfortunately. Number 9, Miles Morales. I think this is way too low. If we're talking about a list, Miles Morales has been one of Marvel's bigger successes of being a legacy character. And it's a lot because, and people like to bag on Bendis, but they made sure Miles struggled when he came out. They made sure that he was not in full control of the powers. They had to push to make him, to make him. And Miles has had less, not immune from it, but he's had less of the "you're just a better character than me in every way." They had his electric venom blasts and sort of invisibility. That's also kind of been part of the character's way to kind of make him bigger, newer, but. Miles, in terms of legacy, in terms of the modern era of legacy, probably one of the better options there. The 4 Supermen. Yeah, okay, this is a weird choice, but all right. The good kind of nod to history, early 90s, and the 4 Supermen that took over after Superman died, and kind of this legacy of other characters. It was a storyline. Maybe not what I'd consider kind of a legacy. This is a little bit odd, but it's certainly, you can't argue that Cyborg Superman has become a villain that's shown up a lot. The Eradicator, yes, as well. Connor has been a character. Okay, just chopped him off. No respect for Connor here. And Steel's a character I think DC could do a lot more with, that they just kind of ignore. And then now there's a legacy character, the legacy character, and his daughter, Natasha, is the legacy Steel. Which it feels like again, why didn't they do more with? Anyway, John is a pretty good character. They should have done more with John. Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Okay, now this is absurd. I think Miles was a better legacy character than Ben Reilly by a mile. I know we're getting more Ben Reilly now, but the Clone Saga, which for some reason people have come around to saying is cool again, it wasn't well received, and I think there's been some stories here and everything else, but I think Miles is a much better legacy character in a lot of ways. Holy cow, that's a lot of text in there. Dick Grayson Batman. This is odd. So as in terms of replacement Batman, we had the Azrael version with the Nightfall storyline. We had the Dick Grayson was Grant Morrison's Batman, and I was talking with a friend the other day that. Maybe we've come to the period where maybe Grant Morrison's Batman is one of the best Batman we've gotten in the last 25 years, and that's kind of weird to think about. But it is. I don't know this one. The Dick Grayson Batman showed us a different, more cheerful Batman, but it wasn't great. It wasn't in terms of a legacy character. I don't know that I put that. I certainly wouldn't put it above some of the others that have been on this list already. But okay. Dr. Octopus Spider-Man. At this point, I'm kind of questioning what this list is, because this was, of course, a superior Spider-Man. It was a storyline. It did some good comic sales and everything else. It showed us a different take of the character. But is this like the best legacy versions of characters? I mean, I don't, Dr. Octopus, I don't know that was, yeah, I don't know that makes sense to me, but okay. John Stewart Green Lantern, absolutely. No doubt about it, has been a great legacy character. Number 4, okay, I'm actually very curious who the top 3 are now, but I think Stewart is a character they continue to need to do more with. I know Jeff Thorne is putting him in his Green Lantern book. Unfortunately, it still feels like that it's sharing the space with a lot of other Green Lanterns, and I know that's what he is doing in that book. That's the purpose of that book, but I would like to see a John Stewart comic, just flat out. James Rhodes, Iron Man, number 3, absolutely, another one. They did a really good job with this. If you haven't read this original story, it's really good. And once again, even in this one panel, The character is like taking on the armor. He's saying, then what? I've watched Tony Stark use this suit a million times, but I have no idea how it works. Him learning how the suit worked, him learning how to be a hero was why the journey was so incredible, and why you found yourself cheering for James to take on the mantle. And of course, he would go on to be War Machine and other things, but it's like this, having the hero kind of struggle a little bit, it's a good thing. Okay. Number 2, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. I think this is way too high on the list. I think, the two above it. I mean, Jon Stewart and James Rhodes are way better legacy characters than Carol Danvers. The funny thing is, a lot of people don't remember the original Captain Marvel at this point. Marvel. It's been enough time, and Marvel hasn't really gone and kind of mined those stories as much as they probably should have, and so it's not really there. Carol Danvers, I think, has been a bit of a messy experiment in that she's had a lot of identities. I actually think, as I mentioned at the beginning, her origin, her beginning, did a pretty good job of trying to get the character off her feet and do things as when she was Miss Marvel, of course, not Captain Marvel. But I think that they were doing a good job building up the character. And then she was binary, and then she gave birth to her lover in that very weird Avenger storyline. And then she was redeemed by Claremont later. Then she came back, and then she was an alcoholic, and then she had that House of M moment, and then she became Captain Marvel. I mean, I think this has been a messy experiment, and most, unfortunately, of the last 15 years or so has been Marvel telling us she's amazing, kind of like this list, than actually proving it. But now I'm very curious, who's number 1? Wally West. Okay. I think this is, hey, Ginger's winning the day. This is a good pick. I think Wally West has been a good hero. I do like that they're just kind of erasing a lot of aspects of the Heroes in Crisis and everything, just moving on. So he's a good legacy character. I mean, this is a big FU to Dan Didio, but all right. So that's the list of top 10 here. And now I have to go to... It's a weird list because there's a lot of names I think are really missing on that list, like a lot of them. It's now as I go back and look at it, you got Wally West, sure. Carol Danvers, again, too high, I think. And arguably with some of the names I'm about to mention, I'm not sure she would make the top 10. James Rhodes, Jon Stewart, Doc Ock makes no sense at all here. Dick Grayson, again, I don't think this makes sense either. Ben Reilly, okay, for Superman, Miles Morales, Sam Wilson. Okay, so elephant in the room. There's a bunch. So first off, I mean, even looking at this picture, we're gonna, Miss Marvel. I'm surprised the list didn't include Miss Marvel. I'm not surprised the list didn't include Nova. The Jane Foster Thor. All right, Laura the Wolverine here. Riri again wasn't there. Amadeus, no. The better Hawkeye, which everybody keeps saying, was nowhere on this list. So I actually agree with most of those not being on the list. I think you could make an argument for Miss Marvel, I suppose, just given what's happened to the character. The rest of them probably not. What about Donna Troy as Wonder Woman? I think that would be a really solid contender. What about Robins in general? I mean, we did go from Dick to Jason. I think there's been, multiple Robins. I think Damian Wayne is very, very popular. Tim Drake is popular. I think that's kind of a very weird oversight. Right now we have the whole John Kent Superman. And once again, in the comics today, we're being told that's the better Superman. It's weird. That's on. What about Sharon Ventura, She-Thing? Like we're going to completely sleep on Sharon. I mean, that seems a little ridiculous there. What about? So I think there's a number of characters here. This is a weird list. I definitely would have had Sam Wilson. Okay, Miles Morales I definitely have a lot higher. I think they've done a good job of that. I'd have Donna Troy somewhere on this list. I probably would have John Kent on this list. I wouldn't have Ben Reilly. Yeah, what a weird list. So what about you? Legacy. First off, I know that a lot of the kind of the talking points these days are that legacy characters equals bad. But looking through this list and hearing some of this stuff, I mean, I think there's some characters here that are really solid, that built up really well. And I go back to, if you simply do the work and giving the new characters some threats to face and some challenges to overcome, I think it works out great, or it can. I think it's when they cheat and they rush it and they want to, basically just do the minimal amount of work of having the older characters, like Thor, And he did this in the title of like, "You're a better Thor than I ever was." It's like, oh, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. That's not helpful to the new character. You can't just tell the reader this. You have to have them discover it. And if you give them huge threats and adversity to overcome, it works. And this is one reason why I do think the Jane Foster Thor worked for some people, because she was going through cancer. There was this mystery involved. There was a threat to the character. And if you compare that in many ways to, I mean, the one that always gets me is the new Hawkeye, the better Hawkeye. She doesn't face adversity. If she gets kidnapped or gets in trouble, she gets herself out of it, kind of no problem, barely an inconvenience. And that doesn't do the best to kind of build up the character. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Legacy characters, what ones stick out for you? And thanks for listening.